Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah.
You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Ibby reps NJ. They're the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? Is real fun. Just like Mookie, I will, son. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show.
Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Till Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get to gabbing.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Till Mets Do Us Part. We are back live on YouTube. We are back live on Twitter, just like we were meant to be this whole time. But we are coming to you guys live a day later than usual for a multitude of reasons. First and foremost, Ibby had tickets to the Mets game yesterday and turned out to be the best Mets game of the week so far to go see. So I also would never take that away from anybody to get a chance to go to the game. When he hit me up, I was like, no, you got to go to the game. I don't know if you could tell by my voice, but I was actually super sick this week. I'm still not feeling 100%. So it was good that we moved things back. And then it also coincided with the end of the series that the Mets just wrapped up with the Oakland Athletics, the powerhouse Oakland Athletics. So we are a day late. Mm-hmm. We are not $1 short, but the Mets certainly are $1 short. So John holding things down, John Saponaro out in Los Angeles, California. And that means Ibby back in New Jersey in the safety of his home where the Mets can't hurt you. You'll be fine. You're safe. Your walls are all brick. So you are good to go. I should mention, by the way, shout out to the Brella Sports Network, which is how we are live. And already 45 people and filling up fast in the chat room. I think it's going to be one of those days where the chat is very, very, very active. And I get why.
Definitely going to be chippy once that game ended. That's what I said in our group chat, that the chat today was going to be very chippy. And of course, I'm doing well outside of the Mets,
Oh, yeah, I didn't ask you how you're doing.
Yeah.
I was so thrown off by the frustration. Hold on. Let's walk it back. So, Ibby, how you feeling, man?
I'm doing good, John. Thank you for asking, as always. And, yeah, I just said to John off air, excuse me, I just said to him off air, like, look, I had a blast at the game yesterday. It was good to see some friends I hadn't seen in a while. We had a great time. We had great seats. We were right up the first base line, pretty close, down the 100s, section 109. Like, we had an awesome time. It was good to catch up, and the Mets were scoring runs, and Pete had a great day, and Lindor hits a homer, and, JD and Winker. It was a lot of fun. Peterson pitched a great game, and we thought, maybe we sparked them. Last time I was with these guys, we had, it was the end of May, and we had sparked what we felt was the start of June, and then, the gay Mets, the grimace Mets, all of that fun stuff that happened.
Now they're the Hocktua Mets.
Now, people just want to spit on them, I guess, instead. But, far from ideal.
The lead that the Mets had in the Hocktua era went away faster than that girl's 15 minutes of fame. She is still more famous than, but man, that Mets lead evaporated real quick.
Went away quick. And, there's a lot to talk about with this team. A lot of things I want to hit on, and I'm sure you do as well, when it comes to what this team has really, for lack of other terms, like what they have wasted over the last week and a half, and what's to come, and how the shortcomings of this past week and a half, like I said, can really come back and bite them. But I'm sure the chat's going to be active today. We'll interact with each and every one of you to make sure that we catch the overall vibes and feelings of everyone here. But let's do this, Sean. Let's have a show.
Absolutely. And really quick, just jump into our own comment, which says, I'm going to keep pushing the Diaz signed ball for more.
That's right.
We're like 197 subscriptions away from giving this thing away. So unless you start telling your friends, we're going to be holding on to this Diaz sign ball for a very long time.
I do not look. This is a personal collection one, so I don't have to, but like I'm holding this until we can hit a mile marker. And if there is one thing I do want to say, I met some people at the game yesterday. Right, met some people at the game yesterday. They were sitting behind us.
Ibby
They were
is
talking.
famous now.
They were talking. No.
Hollywood
they were talking
Ibby.
about right. Far from. And if they are listening, thank you. But they had asked, they were talking about podcasts, and my friend was being a bit of a jackass. He's like, "Oh, my buddy over here's got a podcast," and I was like, "Oh yeah, the name of the show is this and this. Have you ever heard of it?" And they claimed, and then they showed me too, like, "Oh yeah, I subbed to you and I subbed the channel and this and that." And then my phone was dead at the time, so they lied to me. They did not sub the channel. They did not follow us. So I'm a little bit hurt. And if they are listening, you know who you are, because you remember this face. Okay, you know who you are. So I'm a little hurt. It was nice talking with you guys, drinking, having a couple of drinks, whatever. It was cool. But to lie to me like that, little bit hurtful. I'll let it slide for now. All you got to do to make me feel better is like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's it. That's all I want to put out.
I'm going to just translate it for you guys really quick. In other words, what you're going to do, brother, runs wild on you. Yeah, this could happen. Keith said,
that's hurtful.
And unsubscribe.
That's hurtful. If it was for John, I would get it more. But
100%. 100%. I've had so many people unfollow me because of the things that I tweet. So I'm not surprised. But yeah, we would have like 2,000 subscribers right now if it wasn't for me. Look, let's get into some Mets talk. Now, one thing that we try not to do on this show is react to specific games and to specific series, right? You can get the post-game show for that, that the Mets do. You can get some of our other fellow content creators who do a really great job, who are like after every series. I think Mets Weekly does it. I know Wardy goes live after basically every game or every other game. So you can get that kind of up to the second analysis from them. We try to be a little bit different and not do that. However, every time we record after a game has just wrapped up, there is going to be some immediacy bias, right? So we're going to try not to focus too much on the game. Of course, we're going to talk about the broader strokes of what happened with the Mets over the course of this series. And since the last time we did this show last week, which is what we always do, but just kind of keep that in mind. We're going to try, if you guys in the comments as well, certain nitpicky things like, should Mendoza have pinch hit Alvarez for McNeil? Try to stay away from that and just kind of stay with broader strokes for the most part. But I will say, Ibby, this is, as we head into the comments here, this is kind of the sentiment, right? You got Brad, this game sucked. You got Rosie, so the Mets have collapsed. We have Jeff Cohen, we are not happy. You've got Carson even saying, I may have ended the Mets season because he was at the game today. Sorry. Look, I think there's going to be a lot of that going around. And I am pissed off. You guys know one of the things I always say I love to do living on the West Coast is wake up and have breakfast and baseball. And that's what I did. I woke up, I made breakfast, I started watching the game shortly after it started, had my coffee, sitting in my living room, just hanging out. And, it sucks. It's a shitty way to start the day. It's 2:41 here, and I still got my whole day ahead of me, and now I have to marinate on this Mets loss, and that sucks. So I'm not going to try to sit here and tell you guys, oh, just be positive, just focus on the positive. I'm not doing that. But I will say, Ibby, this loss, I saw a lot of people in the comments with this. Obviously, we just brought up some. A lot of people on Twitter with this saying, worst loss of the season, most frustrating loss of the season, most disheartening loss of the season. And in a lot of ways, I am going to agree with you. This was certainly disheartening. But the one thing I'm going to say is that you cannot, with this many games left in the season and with this many games remaining against Atlanta, Arizona, San Diego, and Philadelphia, say that the season is over and the Mets aren't going to make the playoffs. Will the Mets make the playoffs? I have no idea. Honestly, I have no clue. Do I have a lot of faith based on how they're playing that the Mets are going to make the playoffs? I don't. Should you have a lot of faith? Everybody listening to me and Ibby and everybody, no, you shouldn't have a lot of faith. All I'm saying is, don't be so reactionary when all of this is still in front of you. They are not doing a ton right now that is promoting positivity. So I'm not saying to be positive. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I was pissed and disheartened and all the things that you could think of. And I still feel that way. I'm just kind of in like a malaise about this team right now. But the one thing I will say, and if you want to call it a positive, that's fine, is just that there's still too many games left, and there's too many games left with the teams in front of them. It sucks that they're not taking advantage of what was, either a quote-unquote soft part in the schedule, or the fact that some of these teams have been losing. Philadelphia's lost a lot. The Braves have lost a lot. San Diego and Arizona are doing the exact opposite, so they're starting to give themselves some distance. It sucks the Mets have not been able to jump out in front and do better against teams that they should beat. It sucks. But I just want to say, just try to, because otherwise, you know what you're going to do? You're going to just continue to ride this roller coaster. And it does. I tweeted something similar earlier during the game, like, this is not fun necessarily. This is anxiety-inducing and agita-inducing every single game. But I think, and I said it last week, I think this is how it's going to go through the end of the season. So if you're not prepared for the wild ride, then back off a little bit now, because this is what it's going to be. For better or for worse, this is the rest of the season.
To just bring it back to today real quick, it is disheartening, this loss, how you're up 5 against Oakland and you blow it. 11 walks is unacceptable. Whoever you want to place blame on for there, whether it's just the pitching in general, you want to attack Hefner, whatever you want to do, it's warranted, because you should not be walking 11 people. And of course, if you walk 11, you can't expect to win a ball game if you're putting guys on base at that much of a high clip. Everything you just said before is proper, and a point that I have been making on this show, which is why I said it was so important for this team. I said it last week. By the time we record the second show, we'd have a better idea of that 13-game stretch that I highlighted starting on that Monday against the Cards. And I said I would not be happy, and I'm not. I would not be happy unless this team won at minimum 9 of those 13 games, because that's what they had to do, in my opinion, at the time. And I still hold true to that they had to win that amount of games to not only keep themselves in the hunt. Now, I understand they are still in the hunt. They're not out of it. But the whole point that I was trying to make by saying that they needed to win at least 9 was because when you tack on against these lesser teams, while others are struggling at the moment, okay, mainly, the Phils have had their ups and downs with the division, and the Braves within the wild card have had their struggles. If the Mets were able to actually capitalize on what they were supposed to do over these 13 games, they'd be in a much better spot right now. Of those 13 games, I said I wanted 9 wins. Right now, the max that they could win of those 13 is 7. Right now, they're what, 4-6? Okay, 4-6.
13-13 since the All-Star break.
4-6 over the stretch that I'm talking about right now. It's unacceptable. It's not. And the reason why I harped on it was because those other teams were slipping. So when you see the fact that by the end of the day, you might be 3 games out of the wild card, well, three more games, like it makes a difference where you could have had wins against these lesser teams. Now your back is against the wall almost, because yes, you're still in the hunt, only being 2.5, 3 games out, but your job is that much harder because you didn't capitalize when you could. And now you have the Marlins this weekend that are never a walk in the park for you as a team. They're a pain in the ass. I don't care how bad they are. You still can't ever beat them. That's the annoying thing when they are as bad as they are. And then you start rolling into some of the more heavy hitters. I'm looking at the schedule right in front of me right now. We're talking about Baltimore coming to town. Then you got to go out to San Diego. Then you got to go out to Arizona. Teams that have been red hot right now. And then you end with Chicago. So it's like it's not going to be an easy end of the month. Also, the rest of this month could really dictate where they're going to be come September, if they're still going to be in this hunt.
This is what's frustrating about the Mets this season, is that can't you see the Mets? Forget about the rest of this homestand just for a second. Can't you see the Mets coming out west, winning a series versus the Padres, winning a series versus Arizona, like being right in the thick of things, and then losing a series to the White Sox?
It wouldn't shock me at all.
It wouldn't shock you. It wouldn't shock anybody, because that's what they've done. They've played up to competition. They've
play up,
played
then
down
play
to
down.
competition.
Yeah.
And look, and that's why, like, Rosie, this is a great comment. It's fair. It's accurate. And this is what I'm trying to guard against. I'm not saying that you're disagreeing with me on this, Rosie, but this is what I'm trying to guard against. When I say the Mets have too many games left with the teams that I'm mentioning, I'm not saying, don't worry, guys, everything's going to be good. All I'm saying is it's too early to toss everything aside and be like, oh, they lost 2 or 3 to the A's. Everything's over. Braves are winning. This team's winning. That team's winning. It's it. It's a death knell. No, I'm just saying don't do that. Your point here is spot on. The Mets are inconsistent. So if you don't see them winning games against the Phillies, Braves, and Padres, I'll add Arizona to the mix. There's no reason to see them doing that. There's no reason to see them be capable of doing that with any kind of consistency. And I'll add what I just said. Or I could see them coming out, winning games against those teams that that are better than them, and then coming out and losing to teams that are significantly worse than them. And so all of a sudden, you ride the high and then you ride the low. So I agree with you that this is not sustainable and this is wildly inconsistent. But remember, Ibby, I said this last year and I said it the year before. Philosophically, I don't believe in must-win games until you're in the calendar year where you absolutely must win them. I don't buy into that in a baseball season. There's too many games for you to be like, it's a must-win. It's September 1st, a must-win game. I mean, mathematically, if you're going to be eliminated, then you have to win. Other than that, it's a good to win game. It's important to win. To your point, these games, since the last time we recorded or the 2 times ago that we recorded, where you wanted at least 9 wins, yes, that would have been better. That's ideal. That's what you should be doing. But I don't qualify certain things as must wins. And that's me. You guys can disagree with that. That's totally fine. Jump back into the comments for a second here. Talk about a couple different things. Keith with a good point. I just want to know how to go viral. Honestly, he just wants to know what it takes to go viral. And Jeff Cohen.
Well, today's first pitch, she basically told you how you have to. So if you want to go that route, Keith, you're more than welcome.
Jeff Cohen saying at least social media was more enthralled with the ceremonial first pitch. Exactly. It's a non-thing to get to.
Spitballs for everybody.
Maybe we'll get to it at the very end, but we have much more important things to talk about. And this is the segue that I was looking for here. Mr. Nobody chimed in with his first comment saying, hello, folks. Bats seem to have woken up, but it doesn't help if we walk an army. And then Jeff Cohen followed it up by saying, how can every pitcher not have control? The Mets had at least 1 walk from all of their pitchers that they used today. That is absurd. Ibby, I have a lot of beef with this guy, Jeremy Hefner, man.
You mean future GM Jeremy Hefner?
Who has Jeremy Hefner made better? I can't pick somebody. I can't find somebody. And look, I don't think it's an organizational philosophy to walk people, obviously.
No.
But I do, and maybe he's an unfair scapegoat, right? But that's how sports work. If your defense gets blitzed in the NFL 3 games in a row and you lose, by 24 points 3 games in a row, your defensive coordinator gets fired. If your baseball team walks everybody and leads the league in walks over a season, I think it might be time to get a new pitching coach in here.
Yeah, I know. And again, it's something that we've talked about ad nauseum over the last couple of years where, when you want to make an example of something or you want to inflict change, that's what any team does. And we're not advocating for a man to lose a job, but we're just saying, like, when this type of stuff happens and it's consistent, you basically have to say, well, where is this coming from? And if you're not going to put it on that person because you think it's the players have to go out and perform, well, then David Stearns has to take it on the chin then, because it's like, well, these are the guys that you brought in. So then it's a failure on your part. So it's like, it's beyond frustrating. And yes, 11 walks is something that is just it's unheard of, and it's so ridiculous. And also because it's against Oakland. Like, that's another thing. It's like it's an awful team, and you just straight up played down to them. And that it's just, I don't know. I don't understand the overall enthrallment by many people when it comes to Hefner. I feel like it's oftentimes where when good happens, we celebrate the good. when bad happens, we just point to the other good as opposed to pointing out the issues. And look, maybe we're not the ones that should be trying to answer. Maybe, like I said before in our group chat, I was upset that when we had Minconi on, that we didn't bring up the topic of Hefner because the Mets were humming. Like, it wasn't topical, so it didn't even cross my mind. Now I'm upset that I didn't bring it up because I would have loved to just further that conversation to hear why people think so highly of him to this point. Look, you do have to go out there and perform.
Sure.
He's not the one that is walking the yard. Does it frustrate many people that, he doesn't go out there? Yeah, it is. I was like, why would, like, you have 4 visits, like, go out there. Calm the guy down.
He used all of them today. He sure used them today. The Mets were out of mound visits in the 6th fucking inning today. Today he decided to burn a path between the dugout and the pitcher's mound. Today he did it. You can't criticize him today.
Could you imagine? Because I guarantee he realized, like, after all these walks, if he didn't go out there and they walked 11 guys and they still had 4 mound visits, they'd be like, what the hell is this guy doing? But yeah, I don't understand the infatuation. And of course, reading the article today as well, when it comes to, people around the league, seeing this guy as a potential GM, the likes of, people that have climbed the ranks, similar to people in Chicago and Boston. It's just like, I don't know what I'm missing.
Chris Young kind of comes to mind, right?
Right. It's like, I don't know. It's like, I want to ask this question to other people that would have a better understanding. So, like, make me understand. Explain to me what I'm missing, because I feel as though I catch a lot of things when it comes to baseball and understand a lot of things. And I try to, even when I talk on here, I try to speak from what I think the mindset might be to try and calm people down to, while also throwing in my own thoughts. But on this one, I don't have it. And that frustrates me, because it's like, a lot of times I do get it, but this one, I just don't get it. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't get it either, quite frankly, because, again, you could point to pitchers who have done better on the Mets than they had in previous years under Jeremy Hefner's tenure. But how much of that is, and I'm just being fair, I know this isn't a crack scientific analysis, but how much of that is regressing to the mean? How much of that is dumb luck? How much of that is guys just having a good year, because sometimes guys have good years, and that you can factor in a lot of things with that, right? Batting average on balls in play, and just good defense being played behind them. Again, things like luck. How much of that is a testament to some of the stuff they've done in the offseason, in some cases before they even signed with the Mets, right? You look at Sean Manaea, and everybody touts what Sean Manaea did as far as driveline is concerned. And a lot of pitchers will do that stuff in the offseason, whether they're signed with the team, not signed with the team. They all have their independent workouts. They all have pitching gurus that they go to, and academies that they go to, and places that they work with. Hell, John Minconi has one of them, or works with one of them. So, there are these independent things where people can go. So when I say who's gotten better under him, it's not to say that no pitcher has never had a good year under Jeremy Hefner. Of course, we saw a good year from Taijuan Walker. We're seeing a good year now from Sean Manaea. We saw a massive bounce back from Edwin Diaz. But, I use Edwin Diaz as the example because, Ibby, when we talked about this last time, and now it was months and months ago, Edwin Diaz was good before. Edwin Diaz had a track record of massive success in Seattle. So whether or not he helped him recapture something is a different story versus who did you make better. And I don't even want to, because again, I'm not trying to be unfair here. I don't even want to bring up guys who couldn't even sniff the rotation. Like, look at the year Seth Lugo is having. And I know he's having an off-the-chart season, but Seth Lugo has arguably, outside of that 1 year where he was like Andrew Miller and he was a relief ace pitching multiple innings and all of this stuff, outside of that 1 year, he's had his best 3 seasons since he left the Mets. And this was a guy they didn't think could be a starter. So I just want to know, again, I don't want to nitpick on one thing, because then it's sitting there saying like, oh, well, the Mets let Justin Turner go for nothing. Like you can't, if you do that,
Right.
you can go down the rabbit hole of inevitability where you can just pick apart every single thing. But with Jeremy Hefner at the helm, I can't point to one single person who has objectively gotten better and stayed better. Like you look at the start to the year that Reed Garrett had, terrific.
Yeah.
Now Reed Garrett's fine. He's fine. He's okay.
With Reed Garrett too, I think one can easily point to the things that happened within the bullpen that he legit got run into the ground way too early. He was burnt out, and for me, like I had held off from saying this for a while when it came to Garrett, but for me, like even like prior to the injury, maybe the injury had something to do with it too, and maybe it's unfair because of the overworked nature, but like when he goes out there, man, I just feel like the guy that I saw at the start is no longer there, and he just goes out there and it feels like I don't feel right just saying that the guy's a dog, like in the negative sense, but like when he's been going out there, it's like I don't expect much. I really don't. And that sucks because he was so dominant. And I did a couple of segments on him on the show that was really, defending him and the stuff that he was doing. And maybe it's just overuse and it's something that he's not used to, but based off of the body language and things like that, the way he looks, it's like I can't get behind it anymore. But overall,
but isn't that partially on the pitching coach too? Right? Like I understand.
One could say, yeah.
I understand you got to win the game. And if your bullpen is falling apart, you got to ride the hot hand. But like, isn't there a moment where Hefner has to step in and be like, listen, man, Garrett's saying he's good, but if you look at the numbers here, it doesn't bode well for him going out here, 3 times in 4 days or whatever the case may be. Or like, I've noticed watching him throw his side sessions or whatever, the break's not there. Like, oh, don't we have quantifiable ways to measure this stuff in 2024? We measure everything. They just figured out a way to measure bat speed. They measure everything, pitch rotation, all the break, the spin rate. So like, can't you sit there and go, man, like, I don't know, man. I'm just looking at what he's done over the last 30 games and he seems tired because everything is trending down. So to me, part of that's got to be on the pitching coach too. And this one from Killa, maybe it's not Hefner, but stubborn veterans that don't want to change what they've done to be quote unquote successful in their career. I think that was maybe a case you could have made for people like Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, these veterans with a ton of success in their career, even though by and large, they both had successful stints with the Mets because I think they truly knew themselves and their bodies. But Ibby, I don't think there's anybody on the Mets right now that can confidently claim this. Maybe Edwin Diaz, as far as the bullpen is concerned. And in the starting rotation, I would say the one person who has this ability, even though he's young as far as the MLB is concerned, he hasn't even pitched all year, and that's Senga, just because the difference of getting from, the Japanese league to come over here and pitch in the major leagues where, his routine is going to be his routine. I don't see there being a lot of people to kill his point. I don't know, man. Like, is he so stubborn in his ways?
No, I mean,
I just don't think he's that good. Like, he doesn't have that good of stuff.
Yeah.
He's a lefty who throws 90 miles an hour. Like, that doesn't really work that much anymore. It doesn't.
Yeah. Overall, it's just, it's frustrating because, again, I feel like we're having the same conversation that we were having. We had it earlier last year as opposed to this year, but it's like, we want to continue the complete game aspect. And it's like, we're coming off of a stretch where, they got outscored by like 20 plus runs or whatever. So it's like the offense was dying and now the offense wakes up but because the offense wakes up, the pitch is going to take it's going to take a snooze now. We're going to walk 11 guys and we're going to give a 5-run lead and we're going to lose this game. We're going to lose this series to Oakland. And now you got to go into, you got to face the Marlins now before you face these better teams. Like all of it. It's just, we all know that this team wasn't going to stay as hot as it was. We just wanted to see a little bit more consistency, and we thought that was going to show out more, and it hasn't been the case. But the only thing that has been showing out is the fact that this team, to your point before, they play up when they have to. But when they face the lesser teams, they play down. And you have to win against the lesser teams if you want to be a playoff team. By not being able to do that, it hurts you in the long run because you can, even if they go on a little bit of a run here, and play well against these better teams, maybe these better teams cool off a little bit, we might end up coming back to this part of the schedule when the season's over and be like, you know what? They missed it by 2 games. How about those 2 games against Oakland? Yep. How about that series against the Angels? It's like, you can do that with any team during any part of any season. Like I get that, and it's not fair to cherry pick like that. But just looking at it right now, it's like that's the frustrating part, because this team, as we said on day one, they have to win within those margins. If they don't win within those thin margins, they're not going to be able to get to where they want to get to. And right now, it's crunch time.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a very fair. Again, like I was saying, when you start to pick out players that haven't done well or have gone, you can go down the rabbit hole very quickly and you can do that with any team in any season. But that's why there's that old adage in baseball, that old cliche, which is you can't win the pennant in April, but you can lose it. And really, that carries through the entirety of the season. It's about the importance of, when you're in a stretch run, acknowledging what you have to do to win. When you start the season in April, when you're in the middle of it, even sometimes in the middle of the dog days in August, you're not really sure where you're going to end up. But when you get into September and those first few games that have bled into October, that's when you really win or lose it. But yeah, to your point, it can be lost earlier on if you lose sight of it. If you start April and you're, 15 games out of a playoff spot, that is a hell of a lot of games to make up. If you win 5 games in the first month of the season, that's not great. No. That's going to put you in a terrible spot, because it's almost impossible to climb out of that ditch. This is a great one from Jeff Cohen. This is truly the solution, and I'm not being sarcastic. They need better pitchers, Ibby.
You need more talent. You do.
They just need more talent.
You do.
You need more talent. Now, I understand what they were doing this year, and
we all did.
I still think,
I should say all, but
most of us. Look, yeah. I picked them to have a wild card spot, so I was a little bit more bullish on them than some other folks. But because I think they got enough talent to do what they're doing. I never said, "Oh man, you guys better watch this team. They're going to go on a run." No, I just looking at it and saying, yeah, I think this team is good enough to compete. And I think if they stick around, they can get a wild card spot. But yes, overall, they need better pitchers, period, point blank. And that's why, and I don't want to have a trade deadline discussion, but that's why I think the Mets should have been a little bit more active at the trade deadline. I would have went and got a starter of significance. Now, again, those guys didn't move. I don't look to the guys like Skubal, who have tons of control left and all that stuff. I look more at a guy like Snell, and I look at what he could have offered. Now, we'll really never know whether or not he was truly available, or if the Mets just asked and they balked at the price because the price was insane. If the price is insane, I understand why you didn't do it. But also, they do need better pitchers. And this brings up this second point from Rosie from earlier on. Quintana shouldn't be in the rotation any longer. Where do you go? I agree, but where do you go? With Senga hurt and Scott hurt, and I know Scott's throwing, but I don't know.
They're going to treat him with kid gloves.
They should.
And they should.
They should. Because, again, I think Scott has potential, Ibby, but it's not like he was pitching like a Rookie of the Year candidate. He was okay.
He was okay.
He was fine. He was better than some of the guys that they've run out there. Sure, I'd rather watch a young pitcher than watch Quintana. I agree. But you're not getting back, prime Steven Strasburg. You're not getting back prime Max Scherzer. You're not getting back a young Jacob deGrom or a prime Matt Harvey. You're getting back a guy who is still building towards something. So, I agree. I don't want to watch Quintana pitch. Even the people who have defended him, he sucks to watch. It's the same thing with the Ottavino conversation. I know Carson got into it with Joe DeMayo. And look, Carson's a friend of the show. Joe DeMayo's a friend of the show. I'm not going to, bring it up from that perspective. But the fact of the matter is, Ibby, people were defending certain things that Ottavino's doing. And then as soon as the defense over his last 8 outings, and then what happened in the last 3? Bombed. And then last night, he was essentially on his way to getting bombed. It took 2 unbelievable plays for him to not give up runs in that inning where the Mets had a massive lead. Some guys, the numbers, there's that I hate to be a cliche machine, but they say, numbers don't lie. Sometimes numbers lie, or at least they're a little misleading. When I look at a guy like Ottavino, no, dude, he has blow up a game potential every time he pitches. And I look at Quintana kind of the same way, because his stuff's not that good. If he's not perfect, he's awful.
And it seems like we have a lot of guys on this roster that fit that ilk. It's like Ottavino needs to be perfect in order for it to be, worthwhile. Quintana needs to be perfect. Jeff McNeil needs to be perfect. Like doing all of these things in order to get the most out of them, which it's hard to do in baseball because you can't always be perfect. You're not going to get a hit every time. You're not going to make your pitch every time. But for these guys to succeed and to give us as a team what we need, you're asking a lot. So yeah, there's nowhere to go outside of, Quintana can't go anywhere. He has to be here because the lack of numbers. The deadline conversation, it's long gone. It's dead. I never thought that they were going to really dive that deep into it. I thought Eric Fetty was the guy if they were going to. It didn't happen. So when they opted to not go that route, that really put up, like I've been saying, like I think that David Stearns looks at this team and he simply said, look, we're playing good baseball. We're playing respectable baseball. I'm going to just fill these margins a little bit more to give a little cushion. Like I've been saying, supplement the guys that are here, give some help and not give away much, not dive deeper, just do enough to give these guys a chance. And I know some people aren't going to like hearing that because you can say, well, if they would have gave more, maybe this team would have gone further, and you never know within a baseball season. It's like, sometimes I think when you look at a team, you can just say, look, I don't think that we can go out and get what we need to truly be a top flight team. And that was the case. They weren't going to get those guys, and that's why they didn't really dive deep and they weren't really in discussions for them. So does it suck to hear for fans? Sure. But like I said, like that in turn is kind of along the lines of when you heard transition year, but still competing. Like this kind of falls where those words come in. Like, how could you say you're going to compete, but also be transition? It's like, well, when you look at this team, that's kind of where it is. There's a lot of guys on one-year deals. They're still playing good ball. They're winning some. They're losing some. They're still in the hunt. So it's like you're still rebuilding. You kept everything, but you got enough to say, we can still fight. And they can. Like, it sucks that they're not taking advantage in spots. But this kind of, I guess, I still don't think David Stearns has lied to you once. It's still kind of going the way that he said it would.
And look, I know this is something that I've always said, and I said it to a couple people in response to the comments while I was tweeting during the game. Philosophically, I agree with that. I always have said that baseball de-incentivizes teams trying to win. The way Major League Baseball is set up right now, if you're not on paper one of the 5 best teams in the league, they're like, oh, you might as well not even try this year. Sell. Don't spend any money, blah, 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 blah. I would rather be in the position that the Mets are in right now than the position that the Mets were in last year. Now, I understand we got big returns for selling off pieces, but if it wasn't a crazy market last year and the Mets held on to players, the Mets, I don't think, are making the playoffs, but I think the Mets make it interesting because I think there would have been an uptick in performance and play, and guys would have settled in a bit more. So I would rather be a team that's trying to win, unless you are committed to rebuilding, a la what the Orioles were doing on their road to where they're at now, a la what the Astros did, where you tear the whole thing down and you're tearing it down to the studs. And I'm sorry, if you have Lindor and Nimmo and Diaz and Senga and McNeil and Alonso all in the prime of their career, and then you have contracts like Marte, and you have up-and-coming players who are already contributing, like Vientos, like Alvarez, you're not rebuilding. You're a team that should be trying to win. Mm-hmm. You should be. So I'm happy that they're in the position that they are, where they are pushing towards that. Again, it induces a lot of anxiety. It induces a lot of agita. It's not necessarily the most fun ride. Everybody wants to be the big bad team that shows up and ticket sales in some shitty market spike because your team shows up because everybody wants to see Shohei and Betts and Freeman and this guy and that guy. You want to be that team. That's fun. It's fun to be that team. And I want the Mets to be that team. But
in time,
this is better than the alternative.
Oh, absolutely.
By a wide margin.
Shout out to Key over at Shea and Sons, brother Akeef. Just saying before he put out a tweet saying how, this team is frustrating, but he could say like it's the most, you want to call them the most fun 84 win team that doesn't make the playoffs. And it's like, I am having a lot of fun watching this team at times. Do I still get frustrated while watching them in spots? Of course I do. Any fan does. Like last night, being at the game, especially, like that was a lot of fun. It was great. The place was electric. The place was packed for a Wednesday against Oakland. I was like, this place is, I didn't expect that many people there on a Wednesday. And that was a lot of fun. Today, not so much. And, that's part of the ups and downs of the game. But, this team still very much in the hunt. But like I said before at the start, it sucks because they could be in a much better spot. Even with everything they said that they didn't do and how they chose to go about building or whatever, they could be in a much better spot if they were just able to capitalize on the schedule. And then it comes back to, does this team have enough pitching to be able to do the things that I'm asking them to do? That's a fair ask as well.
You know what's worse than frustration? Apathy. And the Mets, if nothing else, you are not apathetic watching them. Now, you'd obviously rather be happy, but
Yes.
it's the old adage of, as a performer, like, you'd rather get booed and sneered at
Than silence.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know
want a
that's going to
reaction.
sound crazy to some people.
No, it's
you
true.
You want the reaction. It's the Mac from It's Always Sunny in the Nightman Cometh episode when he's like, laughs are cheap, I'm going for gas. It's true though, as a performer, like when I did stand up, there were instances where sometimes I would I don't know if I've said this on the show before, where sometimes I would challenge myself and I would go out and I would intentionally get the crowd off my side immediately. Like the biggest instance of that is anytime I would do bits in Boston, New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, anywhere in New England, Connecticut, the first thing I would do is go up and do an anti-Boston Red Sox, anti-Patriots joke. And I would get fucking booed for it mercilessly. But the end of the joke had a little hook where it flipped back on me. And then it was like, oh shit, you see what I'm doing? You see what I'm doing here? You see what I'm trying to have fun with you guys. I'm trying to dance with you guys. I'm trying to get you guys involved. And honestly, sometimes, I mean, it worked, I think, pretty much every time, but maybe it didn't work every single time. You know what's worse? Going up there, telling your first joke, and then looking out and seeing,
like, that's, oh my God. That's the thing that
brutal.
That's what scares the hell out of me. If I would like just say, like, you've done comedy, and a couple of my friends actually did the challenge one time where we went to the city, and they both went up on stage and they did a quick set, just because they wanted to do it, just to say, like, I stood up on stage in front of people, whatever, and try to deliver some jokes. But that's the thing that scares me the most. I mean, that scares me too. Like it's the same thing with like teaching. Like if you have an idea that you think is going to be great, and you go through all the work and you're doing all these things, and you're like, this is going to be the best lesson ever, or this is going to be the best joke ever, and then you deliver it, and then it just completely falls flat, and then you're just like, damn, like, where do I go from here? Like I thought this was gonna, and then it was gonna lead into this, and then this, and then it doesn't happen. You're like, then you got to think on your feet a little bit. But at least this team, to bring it all back, at least this team is inflicting something where you actually feel. It's frustrating, but I am a lot more engaged. I'm watching a lot more games this year than I was last year. It was an absolute chore last year. I said that multiple times on this show already, but at least with this team, I'm watching something that's inflicting something. It's getting me to feel something. At least I want more, but it's giving me something.
Absolutely. It's inducing a response, and you want the positive response. The positive response is the best, of course, but any response is better than no response. And Rosie, you're right. As a generally speaking, as a group, Mets fans are committed. You have to root for the team. Yes. But that's part of my point, is that you look at some of these fan bases that don't show up even when the team is good.
Tampa.
That's horrendous.
Yeah.
That is absolutely, absolutely brutal. This is a great point for Mr. Nobody. Sadly, if you joked about the Mets in New York, people would just laugh. It's true.
It's true.
Because on the flip side, nobody hates the Mets more than some Mets fans. Ibby, I think we should head into the break.
Let's do it.
come out of the break and just reset a little bit. There are some great comments here, a million great comments coming in, but there are some really good ones that I want to get to, specifically from Maureen and from Rosie and Darren and Mr. Nobody. So there are a couple topics we didn't get to yet that we are certainly going to get to. But first, this one from Jeff Cohen: hit the like button, share the video, and subscribe. If you subscribe to the channel, you get us closer to giving away a signed Edwin Diaz baseball. It is a signed Edwin Diaz baseball that Ibby is giving away from his own collection.
You're welcome.
So I listen, we're not giving this away early. We're giving it away when we get to 1,000 subscribers. If that takes 11 minutes or 11 years, guess what, guys? That's when we'll give it away. If you guys wait long enough, we might have Edwin Diaz as a guest on the show, as a retired Met. You never know what's going to happen. So I'm John. That's Ibby. This is Til Mets Do Us Part. If you're just joining us for the first time, you're like, I don't want to sit through a break. Don't worry. It is just a quick 30-second break so we can reset, put some ads in for the audio show. We are not going far, so you shouldn't either. Once again, John and Ibby, Til Mets Do Us Part, live on Twitter, live on YouTube, courtesy of the Brella Sports Network. We'll be right back. Yo, just like that, we are back with Til Mets Do Us Part. Once again, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we should be going forward. We had a couple weeks where we couldn't get live on Twitter. We figured it all out. We're back, and we are going to be back. A little bit of a different show this week because we're in a different day, but we'll be back to our regular time slot next week, Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to the show, enter for a chance to win that Edwin Diaz autographed baseball, and also because I think we do a pretty good job with this show.
I think so too,
and I think people agree. Maureen says Ibby's the best.
Well, thank you, Maureen. Appreciate it.
So there you go. It's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. It's fine. It's fine. The show is the best would have been great, but I agree. Ibby is the best. Ibby is the best. I'm not foolish. I know that I rub people the wrong way, and I know that Ibby doesn't. So it's all good. He is.
Oh, let's not forget that one guy. That one guy did call me a pretentious asshole. Why, I don't know, but he did call me.
Yeah, but you didn't get mercilessly attacked across 2 social media platforms for 3.5 days by I don't know, the Incredible Hulk. So that happened to me.
That's right. I forgot. That's right. It's true.
That's true. Remember that?
I forgot about him. Yeah.
And I say the Incredible Hulk both as a compliment to his size and a diss to his intelligence. Anyway, that said, before we get back into the conversation and some great comments that are going to further the conversation, Ibby, let's talk a little bit about independent safes.
Of course, as always, independentsafes.com. Independent Safes is protecting homes and businesses with secure residential and commercial safes. Fireproof peace of mind in every corner. Visit independentsafes.com today for security that stands strong. And as always, we joke about the safes cost $99. They're all $99. So no matter what, you're getting free shipping. Tell them Til Mets sent you. I know we all want to hide in one right now after that loss. Maybe some of you want to put Austin Adams. Austin Adams, that was his name. Maybe you want to put him in there. Whatever his freaking name is. Who cares?
Sure.
Whatever his name is, you want to toss him in there and lock him away and throw away the key. Whatever it may be, independent safes, $99, free shipping. Tell them Til Mets sent you. We'll take care of you.
Yeah, and of course, we have to talk very quickly about our friends over at MANSCAPED, where you can get free shipping and 20% off. That's free shipping and 20% off site-wide. It doesn't matter what you are looking at, site-wide at manscaped.com with our promo code TMDUP, which stands for Til Mets Do Us Part. That is not just active during the show. You can do that at any point. Manscaped has been a great partner with us. I've got the shirt on. We save balls from April of this year, which was Testicular Cancer Awareness Month, where they did a ton of great donations. So Manscaped is a great partner of the show. And like I always say, you may not think that you are into manscaping your body, and that's fine. Maybe it isn't for you. Stephanie did point out last week that she said, sorry, guys, but John's right. Every guy should be manscaping. But look, I won't take it that far. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But they have a lot more things available on their website that maybe you didn't realize. Nose trimmers, ear hair trimmers, beard trimmers. They have great boxer briefs that you can wear, especially at the gym. They're so breathable. They're light. I wear them when I go to the gym, when I play softball, all of that stuff. So, there's just a ton of stuff for you to look into. And especially if you're not sure, maybe you've never manscaped before and you're like, I want to get something, but I'm not sure if it's for me. Well, why not take advantage of free shipping and 20% off? Stephanie joining us now saying, I will take care of that, John. Put me in the commercials. Maybe we need to get her. Maybe we need to get her in one of these ads. I think that would be kind of fun. Steph, maybe we'll do that. But now that we get back into the Mets conversation, the first thing I want to bring up, ironically enough, is a comment from Stephanie right before we went into the break. She said it helps that the players are also having fun and want to win. That wasn't the case last year. And the reason why I bring this up, Ivy, is yes, that's very true. And also the apathy is not just from the fan base. The players can fall into a malaise. And I think we saw it firsthand last year. I think a lot of those players, and I think that's where the comments from Tommy Pham and Max Scherzer, and it's not to say that these guys are dogs and they don't work hard, but I think that whole team just real early just faded out.
Yeah, and it showed you that, why a lot of us, myself included, like I thought that May of this year was that malaise. I thought it was back. I thought that they were just going to fall into it again. And we were going to, baseball season was basically over at the end of May because this team just rolled over and died again like they did the previous year. But this team, this grouping, this, whether it's the Harrison Baders of the world, the Sean Manayas of the world, the Luis Severinos of the world, whatever it may be, there's or just getting rid of, if it was the Max Scherzers of the world, the Justin Verlanders, whatever it may be, or whoever it may be, just the fact that this team was able to get out of that funk and provide a little bit more shows that there is a different vibe there. The question is there enough for this team to truly carry with the players that they do have?
Shout out to Maureen saying, thank you for having this show on Thursday so I can participate in the chat. Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, Maureen, of course.
Listen, not something we can do all the time, but we're happy that because of our change in the schedule, that it positively affected your change in the schedule. We're happy to have you here. I know she's been here before, sometimes, maybe always on a Thursday. I don't remember. We don't do too many shows on Thursday, but we have in the past. So happy that it worked out for you. And it hasn't really hurt our regulars. A lot of those normal folks still in here as well. Yeah. And the numbers are pretty good. Here's some advice for Mr. Nobody. Keep your Jason Bay cards in an independent safe.
Would you waste a safe? Would you waste buying a safe to put Jason Bay cards in them, though?
No, I would put them in I would just put them in a shoebox. And then whatever happens.
I might just put them in the shredder at that point. I don't even know.
Oh man. Ibby, you kind of touched on this, and I think this is part of what Rosie meant, but maybe not the entirety of what Rosie meant. But I think we should talk about it really quick. I want the Mets, when we're talking about apathy and frustration and happiness and all that stuff, the response was, I want the Mets to not be ridiculed by the likes of the A's. And I think the point here was on the field, don't want to lose to these teams. Yeah. But you also mentioned the Austin Adams thing.
Right.
So I know it was a couple days ago. I know that's not really the point of today's show because the Mets lost the series. That's more important than one person's, interaction. But what did you think about the Austin Adams stuff?
Well, I put out a tweet that got a little bit of traction. And I had said in the tweet that, in so few words, that I don't care what Austin Adams did. I don't care what Austin Adams said. If the Mets don't like it, be better. Simple as that. Because if this team was better in those instances and handled the worst teams like the Angels or whatever, or handling business like they should have against Oakland, in a spot like that, then something like this doesn't matter, is not talked about. But also, it doesn't happen because if he did that same thing in a spot, but they were losing that game by 3 runs, no one's talking about it. He's the one who's being ridiculed because he's being an idiot because they're still losing. But it happened because the Mets have been playing like garbage. He spits on them, essentially. So if you don't like that, handle it. Like, if you don't like it, go out there and beat. The only thing people care about, the only thing that Mets fans care about is just they want a winning team. I am not going to get bogged down by guys being animated against us because there's no point. If you don't like it, many of us here have played the game, continue to play the game, all have been competitive, all know that things can get chippy on the field. You don't like a certain team, you don't like a certain player, you don't like the way someone acted. You go out there and you try to shove it down their throat. That's what you want to do, but you got to go out there and do it. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, that guy's a jerk, he crossed the line and blah, 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 blah. It's like, if you don't like it, tattoo the guy next time he's on the mound. Okay. I liked yesterday, Lindor hits the home run. He's rounded second. And what's he doing to the outfield? It's going like that. Why? Because who's out there? Austin Adams is out there. So, hey, screw you, guy. There's my home run. Suck on that. Like, that is fine by me. If you as fans sitting there are going to complain about it, like, I don't know what you want. You should be angry at your team because it's like, well, you know what? The only reason this guy is doing this is because we fucking stink right now. They're handling us. An awful team, god-awful team is handling you right now.
Good offensive team. I'm not trying to sugarcoat the losing the series, but the A's are a good offensive team. They've been a good offensive team for most of the season. In fact, their upswing after a terrible start has been largely because their offense has been very good.
Shea Langoliers also, I think he was on base like every single time this week. But yeah, he's a good player as well. He's having a good season. And Rooker obviously being out too for the
his dad was a big Mets fan in Texas. That's where he got the name from.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so his name is Shea Nolan Langoliers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Stadium and Nolan Ryan. They said it in the broadcast of the first game. I didn't know that. I figured there might be some kind of connection because Shea is. I mean, I know it's a name. But like it's most notably a name associated with Mets baseball, right? Like at this point. So so that's where the name comes from, which is cool.
It's my daughter's middle name, and everyone knows why it is. So it's just like, if you don't like it, then do something about it. Like, you as a fan, I don't understand why we get so bent out of shape at these things. It's like, I know it's because maybe you're upset that you can't do anything about it, so you want to complain about it or say something about it. It's like, oh, you disrespect my team. It's this and this and this. It's like be mad. Like me, I'm angry at my team for playing like garbage. Go out there, be better, so these things don't happen. If you go out there and you're consistent and you're a good team, this nonsense doesn't happen. And if it still happens to you in a given spot, your team will know how to handle it. Go out there, handle business, and take a series or shove it back in their face by doing something else. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Just win. Yeah. That's it. Win the series, win the game, whatever it may be. Winning cures and shuts up all of this. Austin Adams, I don't care about you. I've never cared about you. Do what you want to do. But me, in this moment, I'm angry at my team that I talk about on a daily basis because they weren't able to shut you up.
I agree. Before I give my comments, Ant Rivera's here, and he says, I'm here. If you haven't done so already, I want to talk about that bum Hefner. We did.
We did.
Sorry, Ant. We love you, but you're going to have to go back. We can't do it again.
Ant, did you see Deadpool yet? I want to know.
If he hasn't seen Deadpool, Ant, I would never tell anybody to leave our show. If you haven't seen Deadpool, leave now and go see Deadpool. I know that there are late night showings still. That movie's made $1 billion. They're still playing it at 7:30, 6:30, 9:30. Yeah. Go now.
Go now.
Go now. I don't want to hear any more excuses. As far as excuses go, I think there has been a lot of excuses made by the Mets in this regard. I'm with you. Just don't get beat up. So I'm not necessarily an advocate in policing, like going out and hitting a guy for showing you up. I think the Mets have not been fierce over the last several years. I think they're a little bit better under Mendoza than they certainly were under Buck Showalter and some of the people before that. I think they were a little too buttoned up, a little too just go out and play the game. Look, if you're getting hit with pitch after pitch after pitch, the way they have over the last 2 years before this year, yeah, you have to hit some people in retaliation because we're getting hit. Somebody else is going to have to get hit. I don't think anybody needs to get hit with a baseball, and you need to escalate the thing when something like the Austin Adams situation happens. I think, to your point, just go fucking beat them And then you can do all the taunting you want back, like to your point, Lindor did.
Yeah.
So what I think the excuse part that I mean is when guys come out and they say, it's over the top, shouldn't have said that, shouldn't have done this. My point when I tweeted out what I did was that every team has celebrations now. An oh my God sign, a trident, a coat, a sombrero, a this, a that. They have a rally cry. There's the rally monkey. There's every team has something. If you do something like that, you are, and I'm for it. I think it's fun, and I think baseball needs more of it, not less.
Agreed.
But if you do that stuff, you are, as every team does, you are open to getting slammed, getting it thrown back in your face by other teams when they shut you down. And the best response is punching back and using that billboard material and going out and beating them. I don't want to hear, I guess basically what I'm saying is, I don't want to hear stuff from players going, that's too far, that's unwritten rule. If you've already broken the quote-unquote old school unwritten rules by flipping the bat, by wearing a fucking Colonial Times jacket or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, if you're doing stuff like that, I'm for that. I think baseball's more fun that way. Yeah. But then if a guy gets pumped up and starts yelling stuff and doing your celebration, you can't be mad about it. Now, you could say the stuff that the John Boy guys found, you know, with the lip read of like, you piece of shit, all this stuff. Yeah. Listen, I don't think he meant that they're pieces of shit. He seems like a pretty fiery guy that was going off pure adrenaline. And listen, we'd all be lying. Like, it doesn't matter which level you've played at. I don't care if you're playing video games. And I'm not even talking about playing video games online. You've never, like, beaten a big boss in a video game or gotten a big hit after you struck out 3 times, and on your way to first base, you're like, fucking piece of shit. Not meaning it towards anybody. No. You're just like, I'll fuck you piece of shit. I'll fuck you.
Like, no, of course you have.
That's what you do. You're operating on a high level. You're sitting at a 10 to be competitive, and then it's like anything pushes you over the top. You just like kind of, it's not always positive elation. Sometimes it's like, ugh.
And let's not forget, like, people can joke, and it's funny if the guy was here for a cup of coffee, he got DFA'd so quick he didn't even know he was here. People were joking, I didn't even know he was here. But again, when you're at that level, you still have those competitive juices in you, and you think highly of yourself, because if you're playing in the show, you should be thinking highly of yourself. Because not everyone gets to do that. The top 1% get to play Major League Baseball. So if you get DFA'd by someone and you come back and you shove it down their throat, you're going to say, you could have had me. You got rid of me. And this is what you could have had. So that's when someone gets fired up, and then they say the things that they do, and they're like, screw you.
Oh, no. Ibby froze. The Wi-Fi. Austin Adams got him. Austin Adams got Ibby's Wi-Fi.
Whatever you want to do, all this.
You froze for a second. I think you're back now.
Am I back? Am I not?
You froze. I swear to God, you froze. You froze mid. What? Mid. Oh my God. Oh shit. Okay.
But yes, if you are the Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi monster got me, Keith. If you are, like I said, some guys have a chip on their shoulder, some guys have a boulder on their shoulder. I'd be lying if I didn't say, like, there have been times where, something happened to me, I got cut from a team, and then, I faced that team, whatever, again, and then, I'm a little bit extra in those moments, because it's like, I'm going to show you, motherfucker. This is, am I as outwardly as that in that situation? No, but to your point, like when you hit first base, like, fuck you, motherfucker. It's like, and you might just whisper it. Maybe you're not screaming it at them, but either way, you're in a stadium filled with 30,000 people. You're screaming, whatever. I don't care. I don't care. You shouldn't have let it happen, because you should have just hit the guy. And if you don't hit the guy, you see that it happens, and then there's your bulletin board material. You go out and you do what you got to do. And then they did that the next game, and then they rolled over today. So it's like, I don't care.
To their credit, they kind of did it today too. You know what I mean? I know there are a couple guys out of the bullpen had some good innings against them. Look, Mason Miller hasn't allowed a run since he'd been off the IL. Mason Miller's ERA on the season is like 2.06. Mason Miller has had a terrific year. He's got electric stuff. His slider is wipeout. He was throwing 102. you're probably not going to come back against him, although they did have their chances. But also, again, just I'm not excusing the series loss like I wasn't before, but giving the A's credit where credit is due. Their bullpen is one of the strengths of their team. Their bullpen has been good. I know they traded Urseg, but it hasn't really missed a beat. And it starts with Miller, but they have a lot of good arms coming out of that bullpen. So, and look, maybe Adams is included in that. Maybe he's a 1-year washout. Who knows? But the Mets kind of did the same thing. They came out and they hit them hard, but it was one of those games that they allowed to get away from them. Before we talk more about that, I want to jump back into the comments really quick. Keith saying just man up and play better. Rosie saying, oh, I agree. The ridicule stops if the Mets win. Just remembering how they were ridiculed by the Brewers too. Douglas saying before, I couldn't care less that he ran his mouth. I care more that the Mets bats went silent and made his antics the story. All good points across the board. And, Stephanie had said, right as you were saying it, let's see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, to your point, she did say he said you DFA'd me. So this is kind of on you. And I don't think it's a big deal because I think the moral of the story is if you're going to invite this stuff into baseball, which I think is for the positive, it's going to be on both sides. And if you're going to dish it, you got to be able to take it. And sometimes people are going to shove your noses in it. And the best way to retaliate is to shove their noses back in it. The Mets did it for a day, but they couldn't do it for 2. And that's why we're having this show with the feeling that we're having it right now. If the Mets win this game, regardless of the loss in the first, it's a totally different vibe.
Completely different vibe. And Joe K bring up the perfect point. The reaction to Austin Adams should be, who's Austin Adams? You should I just hate that. Again, it's probably just the age of social media and everything is right in front of us. Everyone wants to type something and put something out there, but it's you don't have to give this merit. You don't have to keep on talking about. You don't have to. It's if this team was playing better, it happened at a time where this team's playing like shit, so everyone thinks that that it was this absolute slight. It's no, the slight is against you as fans by having to watch the way that this team had been playing up until that point, to then obviously then go on to lose the series against one of the worst teams in baseball. That's what should upset you, not what Austin Adams does when it comes to mocking you from a celebration standpoint.
Great question here from Keith. Is Austin Adams the Huck Tua girl? Mr. Nobody saying, which is funny with the handle being Mr. Nobody, saying it's fine. I don't blame him, but it's funny. It's I don't even know who you are meme. It's true.
Yeah, right.
It's true. And it's one of those things where, you make the guy, it's in hip hop, certain artists won't respond to other artists' diss tracks because they're you're not even on my radar, dude.
Right. Right. Somebody goes to Eminem, he's not going to answer.
A response. Yeah. How many times some of these people have to poke at Eminem for him to even respond. Machine Gun Kelly had to do it 9 times before Eminem was okay, you know what?
I'll bury you. Fine, give me 3 minutes.
and that's the kind of thing but if you it's a little different in sports, but if you beat him, then you don't have to worry about it. Right. Great one from Ant saying, can't wait to see what GM Jeremy Hefner does with the roster construction next season. Armand said this a couple times, or said a couple different versions of this, and we're so sorry. Just got home from that horror show in Citi Field. So sorry you had to be there.
I couldn't imagine sitting out there. Yesterday's game flew by, obviously, because there was offense and the pitching was good pitching on both ends. But just sitting there today, you got Quintana on the mound. It's the longest game in the new pitch clock era. I'm sitting there, it's this game starts at 1:10, and we're wondering if we're going to start on time for a show that we're going to have at 5:30. That's a problem. It was all in all horrible day. I hope you didn't sweat too much out there in the heat, but just overall, just terrible.
I got to the point, I never we've done this before where there's been getaway days on Wednesdays in our regular time slot. And it's hey, Ibby, let's just start when the game is over, right? If we can, and sometimes those games, not usually, but sometimes those games could be a 4:00 start or a quirky start, whatever. It's, they're in the central time zone. So it's 2:00. We don't know if we're going to, whatever. We got to the point, and I didn't think we're ever going to get there. I had my phone in my hand being well, Ibby, let's just start when this game is over. I don't know when it's going to be. But let's just do the show after the game. There's no point in going on when the game is still happening. Couple things here. These are earlier comments. These are the things I teased that we were going to get to. Ibby, Mr. Nobody said before, this offense should be good enough to go on a run. The pitching is still too flaky. I agree with that. I think this takes it one step further. Darren saying their starting pitching and some key components of their bullpen let them down today. That's more of a specific comment about just today, where I think to an extent you could throw some of it away, where I kind of said it in a tweet. Ron Darling said it all broadcast long. He was like, this is just one of those games where you need one of your pitchers to come in and shut it down, kind of the way Mason Miller was asked to do for the A's. The Mets really couldn't get that. All of their bullpen guys kept stumbling. It's a quirky, long, slogging, messy game. You just need to try to escape with a win. And I think, again, even if it was the same exact game, but the Mets win in a walk-off, it changes your feeling going into our show. It changes your feeling going into the next series. But I think the larger point of the Mets pitching being so flaky, I mean, that's really what's going to be the long term over the next 40 some odd games is, can the Mets get better pitching overall? They're to Stearns' credit, he tried to remake the bullpen on the fly. Maton's been really good. Stanek has not been great, although he looked better today. Brazoban had really one bad inning where everything came apart in that Angels game. I know he gave up a run today. It is what it is. But I don't know. And then their starting pitching, you've seen a lot of ups and downs from a lot of these guys. So do you think the Mets have enough pitching? Because there's not any pitching help. There's no pitching help coming outside of getting Nunez back, maybe Sean Reed-Foley. So you might get a fresher arm or something in the bullpen. Do you think the Mets have enough? I do think the Mets offense is good enough. Do you think the Mets starting pitching is good enough to just get into the playoffs?
I'll answer it like this. I'll say that I agree. And because you go back to our bold predictions episode, we were both very bullish on the offense and how we thought that the offense, and we said it verbatim back then as well, that the offense could carry this team in spots, but they were still going to need the pitching to show out when needed. Because we are where we are post-deadline and everything that went on, I question if they have enough pitching, because it seems as though, look, could another gear be found where Luis Severino can right himself and he can become something that he was earlier in the season as opposed to what he has been the last couple of starts, what have you? Shomanai has been on fire. Can he stay on fire? You know what you're getting from Quintana. Obviously, you lost Senga. Can Peterson stay? There's a lot of will they, won't they? It's not a lot where you can say, I know for sure. And I think when you're trying to make pushes like this and trying to be a player for the playoffs, you have to have those somewhat guarantees. I feel more confident in the offense because I think even though that they are streaky and they have their ups and downs, and when you have the likes of Nimmo being in the huge slump that he's in, Francisco Alvarez has been absent for the longest time now. Even with those two down and Pete kind of being up and down, obviously the last couple of days he's been better, but him being up and down, I can still say that this offense can do enough because it's a lot deeper. But from the pitching standpoint, I don't know if we're going to get enough. What I've been saying, they're not going to get enough length to not fry the bullpen to where all of it's like a house of cards. It's going to come crumbling down because you can only do so much. You can only put so much pressure in a given spot when you're building said house. Otherwise it collapses. So it's like, if you're going to take away, if you're not going to give me what I need from the starting perspective, because again, there's no guarantee. I love Sean Manaea. I love what he's been doing this year, but let me ask you, are you 100% confident that Sean Manaea can continue this last 10 starts? Is this Sean Manaea? Is it do you know, you don't know for 100% certainty, because there might be where he has a 3-game stretch where he's he can't find his he can't find his location. Maybe he starts walking guys, and that would be normal because in a vacuum, we look at the stats at the end, you might still say he had a great season.
Right.
But when it's time to really need, like, you don't know. There's not a lot of, I know I'm getting this from the starting rotation right now. And I think that that's what's going to end up being the downfall for this team.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. This is a great one from Douglas. The pitching was never going to get this team to the playoffs. The offense was always the key, and having Pete not be Pete is crushing.
That's true.
Yes,
true.
You know I'm a big Pete defender. I'm a big proponent of Pete. That doesn't mean you write Pete a blank check. It doesn't mean you build around Pete. It just means Pete Alonso is still a very useful ball player. If you look at the peripheral of like his numbers and what he's doing, I don't think he deserves the hate that he's getting. I know he's been unclutch, and that's frustrating. And unclutch is always going to get a lot of hate, especially when you have chances to win games and make the difference in games. And look, he did it last night. He didn't do it today, right? That's kind of how it went for Pete, and that's how it's been all season. They talked about it on the broadcast. Pete getting hot for 40 games when he hasn't been hot all season, it would be huge for this team. It would be absolutely huge. Can he do it? Yes. Will he do it? I don't know. But that's a great point from Douglas, because they need Pete to be more than what he's been. He's been okay. And when you look at it at the end of the season, he's going to have stats, Ibby, that I kind of tweeted about. Like, you're not going to want to throw his stats away. He's probably going to hit like 255 and hit 35 home runs and have like 100 RBIs. It's not going to be something that you're going to want to throw away. But when you look at where those numbers could have been and maybe should have been, heavy air quotes there, based on his career averages, that's not enough, because Pete is relied on to be a guy who hits 40 home runs and drives in close to 120 runs. And the difference of him not having one single hot streak and or just not being super clutch all year, that's the difference in those 20 some odd RBIs, maybe 25, whatever. That's the difference in those 10 home runs, 8 home runs, whatever. So I think it's a good point. And again, look, I think that there's a chance Pete Alonso's still on this team next year. I know it's going to make some people happy. It's going to make some people angry. People are kind of arguing with me based on some of the stuff I said on Twitter today. I'd rather have Juan Soto. Me too. That's not the point I'm making. The point is, what if you don't get Juan Soto? Where do you go? Now if your solution is to sign, Anthony Santander and get Santander and get Corbin Burns and spend the rest of the money around, that's a good strategy. I'll take you on that. If your solution is play Mauricio at third and sign this guy who sign Bregman, like, that's stupid. That's not a good solution. That's not how winning teams operate, and that's not how big market teams operate. It's a bad move. So I'm just saying, be careful, because you can't throw it away. But at the same time, Douglas is spot on here that him not being him is a huge problem. And Rosie's point is good too. You can't rely on the Mets offense because it's too inconsistent. It disappears too often. I would say that the Mets offense is pretty streaky, but streaky in line with league average, as far as my eyes tell me. I think the streakiness here is part of what Douglas is talking about. Pete not having a Pete season, Nimmo being ice cold, Alvarez being ice cold. I think it's more that, Ibby, than necessarily being inconsistent.
Yeah, I understand where the thought process is, because we just watched them come off of a stretch where they weren't hitting the ball at all. They got embarrassed in Seattle on the back end of that road trip. But no, I think that the offense does enough to keep this team in the hunt. But the offense is what has to like that. But again, that kind of shows you where the team is, where you're like, I think the offense is too inconsistent. It's like, I understand where you're coming from, but it's like they still, even within those inconsistencies, they still do enough to carry this team to this point, more so than what the pitching has done to this point. So it's like, if this team is going to keep on winning games, odds are it's going to be because of that offense. There's going to be the ups and downs, and hopefully you hope that the pitching can come around. So we're talking about on these back end 40+ games, like you're hoping it can. I don't think that it can, which is why I'm not as confident, because again, I can't point to the pitching staff and say, I 100% trust that this, and this can happen, which is going to allow us to get to where we want to go. The offense can carry you so far, but the pitching has to step up in certain areas, and I just don't think that it can.
Yeah, look, this is more of an off-season conversation, but since we're kind of talking about it, John says I'd sign up for Vientos at first, Bregman at third, Soto in right field. Look, Vientos at first, Soto in right field, fine. Bregman at third, no, I don't want Bregman. I don't want Bregman. People who talk about Pete's potential decline, just look at Bregman. Bregman is not that good. Now, if you told me Vientos at first, Chapman at third, Soto in right field, because I think Chapman might get less money, I would go that route. Also because Chapman is a plus defender. I don't even love that. And that's why I'm more on the idea of keeping Pete, even if you were to get Soto. Because look, when you look at this, whether it's Bregman, whether it's Chapman, insert blank free agent here, right, Ibby? When you look at that, you're spending over $100 million to get Bregman. You're spending over $100 million to get Chapman. So if you're getting Soto and one of those guys to play third base, why wouldn't you just have Soto and keep Pete? Yeah, no, I don't want Beatty at third. Douglas knows I don't want Beatty at third. So it's John saying I'd be good with Chapman. I'm not attacking your comment, John. But it's just that, like, I'm with Armand here. I don't know if you disagree. I mean, I would rather keep, if you told me the Mets could get Soto and another marquee free agent that's going to cost them whatever, $150 million, $175 million, blah, 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 blah. I would rather keep Vientos at third and keep Pete than get Chapman or Bregman. I know Pete's a flawed player, but isn't there something to say about Pete doing it here in New York and putting up the numbers he's put up? I know he's had a down year by his standards, but Ibby, let's say Pete continues his down year and finishes with 34 home runs and 98 RBI, something like that. You think is Chapman doing that? Is Bregman doing that? I don't think so. Now, I know Soto's going to do probably better than that, but my point is, isn't that a more bankable number for spending money on Pete than it is for Chapman or Bregman, or am I wrong?
I would contend against that, only because when it comes to this point with a player, it's about projecting outward. Like, what am I going to get moving forward? Like, this is what you've been giving me. And then the person can say, well, Pete has had these numbers, and yes, he's one of the better power hitters within the game, but they might say he's been trending down in these areas and he plays a non-premium position. And even though you think he's going to give you 30 plus homers, we think we could get, 25 homers or 20 homers from this and fill out other spots with this given money. And yes, money isn't an issue, but again, I think it's more about spending it properly. And I'm at the point where I don't know what's going to happen with Pete. I really think that it's gotten to a point where I think Boris is the stubborn person in the room. And I say that because if the rumors are true, when you turn down 7 years at $160 million because you wanted to bank on yourself because you thought you were going to get more, I think he's going to have a hard time taking less of a deal because he's not going to get that same deal from the Mets in the offseason. I do not think that at all. And if they don't offer that, I think that it then comes down to, Boris saying, if you don't give me that, then we're going to walk. And even if that walk means we're going to take like a Bellinger-esque contract or a Snell-esque contract where it's like 3 years, 90 million, but opt-outs every year, we're going to take that instead to bank on us moving forward, as opposed to.
And he won't take that from the Mets out of principle.
No, he won't take that out of the Mets out of principle because I want what you offered me before. So that's kind of where I am, because I think Boris is the interesting part here, but I think Pete's in trouble because the main thing that he banked on to be here was the Met legacy. And by not having the year he thought he was going to have this year in a walk, takes away the Mets as a top end overspend bidder like they were for Nimmo. And I think he wants them to be that, but he's not having the year that Nimmo had last year or a prototypical Pete year. Like, and I think he's going to fight and say, you gave Brandon 8 years. I want 8 years. Right. And he's not any. Sorry. You're not going to get that at this point. Because you're not having this huge year. You're not going to come close to that. No. Like, if you think, I would say I would be shocked if he got 5 years. Scratch. If he got 5 years and options from anybody, I would be shocked. I really would. I would be shocked at this point. I would. And I think he's lucky if he gets if he breaks $125 million, I think he's lucky. That's where I am.
Yeah, I do see your point, but just to go back to my question, because your point is well thought out from a standpoint of building a team, where the Mets go, how the Mets go. I'm just looking at it again, acknowledging that nothing exists in a vacuum, right. But in a vacuum, from the Mets perspective, if you're going to spend big money on Soto plus another player, doesn't it make sense for that other player to be Pete and not Bregman or Chapman? In
terms of those players
specifically,
like somebody said in
the comments, like, I want Soto and Santander. And I'm like, yeah, okay, do that. Fine. Put Brandon Nimmo back in center field. Go get those two guys. Like, if that's your two guys, I'm willing to lose Pete for those two guys. I'm not willing to lose Pete for Bregman or Chapman. I don't think it's a smart play.
Because of the way you're wording it, yes, I would rather have Pete because I don't like Bregman outside of those Crawford boxes in Houston. I don't like I'm not a big Chapman guy. I know he's having a great year this year, but I think Chapman here is a nightmare because I think of the extreme ups and downs. Like, people didn't like Javier Baez. Like, that's kind of what you're getting here with less flashiness. And you can't always assume that the glove is going to stay as good. So in that situation, then it's like, yeah, you go with the legacy play, you go for the home runs, and you go with that player. But outside of that, it's like, yeah, I mean, I would rather do like Soto and pitching. Like, that's what you need. Or like a pitcher to help them grow and keep building from within with your other pitching. That's how teams win now. But yeah, I just think when it comes to the Pete conversation, these next 40 plus games are very important for him. And we'll see how he goes about it. And if he can get out of this funk and go on that Pete-like run that he has in other seasons.
Shout out to Armand for reminding me. I thought it was him, but I didn't want to say it and miscredit. He was the one who said Soto and Santander. And it's funny because I know there's the bank that is Santander and they're spelt the same way.
Right.
But I think he's Anthony Santander, right? I think like he pronounces it slightly different.
Right.
So I keep mispronouncing it or pronouncing it right. And I keep
I did the same thing with it's Luis Robert, but I always for some reason say Luis Robert
because of the Colbert Report. Right. And you've been trained to say stuff like that. No, I get it. Look, here's one thing I will say. Stephanie says, I really don't think the Mets get Soto. If they do, I will eat the very phone I'm typing this on.
50-50
I'm not sure
shot.
if the Mets get Soto, but I would not be betting eating phones, eating hats. I would not be. I think it's I think it's a coin flip. I think if the Mets come in and they're like, hey, you know what? We want you. Here's $650 million or here's $700 million. I know it's insane. I know that's an insane number. I know that's crazy. But if the Mets come out and they say, you're 26 years old, here's a 10-year deal for $650 million, they're going to get so.
Jesus Christ.
I understand that it's an insane. It feels like we're playing Monopoly. I get it. But if and I don't know if the Mets are going to do that. But if they do, and they could. Cohen could. And if they do, and I don't know if that's the number, right? Maybe it's 550, it's 575, whatever. I'm just saying if the Mets come out and they're like, here's the most money, he's going to come here. He will. Because it's everything he's done in his free agency is that in his career to this point is I'm going to bet on the most money. I'm going to bet on myself that I could go get the most money, and he's proven it every single time that he can. So I think it is. I think if the Mets offer him the most, he's going to come here. This is a good one from Armand. I don't know if he meant it in this way. I actually know he didn't, but I'm going to take it this way. I think teams would rather trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. than sign Pete. Ibby, if the Mets don't want Pete and miss out on Soto, I could see them maybe trading for Vlad Guerrero Jr. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying I could see them trying to replace the power, getting a guy who's got I think he's got next year and one more year or something like that left. Like I would have to see his what his free agency is, or is it just next year?
He is free in 2020. I think it's 2025. After 2025, I believe.
After 25. Okay, so it would just be a 1-year deal for him.
I think.
But you know what? I could see them still maybe making that move. I don't know. I'm just saying you have to replace the power somewhere. So if you don't want Pete, you miss out on Soto, and you don't get Santander, you're going to have to go and try to find this power somewhere. Armand confirming he is a free agent at the end of next year, same as Bo. But, also he's had a little bit of an up and down. Maybe you can get him, right? Maybe you can get him for something, not on the cheap necessarily, but they seem like a team that's maybe going in a different direction. Maybe they try to, build a little bit more. Maybe you can get him for a couple pieces, whatever. I don't know. But I'm just saying, I think that that's possible. Here's a good one from Carlos Ortiz saying, at this point, I just want our team to finish strong, playoffs or not. Yes.
And finishing strong. And again, that's the frustrating thing for a lot of people, because they'll do what a lot of fans do. Like if this team finishes strong and they miss the playoffs by a game and a half, 2 games, then they'll go back and say, well, like I said before, what could they have done during that one stretch or this stretch, or like a couple games here and there. But I just think that the important thing for this team is to finish strong, to show the league in general that you have pieces here to show potential free agents or whatever, as you continue to build, because again, this is all about David Stearns and trying to establish something moving forward. This season is only step 1. Right. I know people don't like hearing that, and they don't like hearing about plans and this and that, because they want to. I understand.
Trust the process.
Trust the process. I know. They're tired of hearing that, and I get it. I understand. But this is step 1, and if you can finish strong, again, I've used other seasons as this, for a comparison. But I always go back to 2005 as a Mets fan, and that was a difference-making year, because yes, they fell short. They did not make the playoffs, but they established something, and then they were able to go out and get other pieces, and then they were able to build off of that. The same thing can happen here. I want my team to make the playoffs. I know my prediction at the beginning of the season said they were going to win 84 games and miss the playoffs. That might be what ends up happening. Does it make me happy? No, it's just I think that, based off of other teams, that they might have just fallen short because I didn't trust the pitching all that much. But if you win 84 games and you've been fighting all year, it shows at least that you have something that you can then further build on. You don't come across as this huge joke that has to overpay for everyone to come here. It's about making yourself as a franchise better. I want my team to win. I'm not saying I want them to miss. It's not what I'm saying. I want them to do well, and I'm going to keep on with them to do well. But to the point that was made by Carlos, yes, you want your team to finish strong. Go out. You got 40-something games. Go out there and finish above 500. They're 500 right now, right? Post All-Star break, exactly 500, right? 13-13. So go out there and finish strong. Finish above 500. Finish a handful of games over 500. Keep yourself in the hunt. And if you fall short, it's whatever. It sucks. At least you have something to hang your hat on when it comes to building moving forward. People don't like to hear that, but that's just me.
Yeah, I totally agree. Ant Rivera saying a lot of Mets fans thought this team wasn't a playoff contender. They should be the least bit angry about how this has turned out. If you thought the team was going to be horrendous and they're fighting for 50
games,
why would you be angry about this? Ibby, I want to end on this. I know it's not Mets centric, but Maureen brought this up a long time ago. Somebody else, I think Jeff Cohen, brought it up in the comments too. They talked about it on the broadcast. MLB is now thinking of making pitchers go 6 innings. Now, in fairness, this is a ways off. It's just a concept that was floated out. It's not even to the point where they're trying it in independent ball yet, where they're trying it in the minors. But the idea is to make the starting pitchers, per the article, the main characters again. Build up these starting pitchers who are these elite titans and force the game, force the teams to have these pitchers go at least 6 innings. Now, the caveat is if a player throws throws 100 pitches, they don't have to go 6 innings. If a player gives up 4 runs or more, they don't have to go 6 innings. And if a player leaves the game because of injury, they don't have to go 6 innings. But then there is an automatic IL stint that is attached to that, because this way that people can't they can't play around with manipulating the IL. Oh, he got hurt, but he's fine. So if they get hurt during a game and have to come out, then they have to go on the IL, mandatory. But if they also, if they get to 100 pitches before 6 innings, they can be removed. If they get to 4 runs or more that they've given up before 100 pitches, they can be removed. What do you think about this as a concept?
I understand what they're trying to do. It comes, to me at least, it comes across as extreme only because of where the game has been trending over the last handful of years. Because you're asking to go from one extreme to the other. Like, you say all of that, and I hear it, and I go, wow, like the idea of going back. And to Howie's point today, who was talking about on the radio, because I was listening in the car, like, to his point, he was like, it allows people to go back to pitching as opposed to throwing. And it's like, yes, you don't have to dial it up to 100 every single time, which is why these guys only go 4 innings, because they run out of gas. If you manage that differently, you might be able to then go 6. But none of that matters. Everything that you just said, none of that matters if the pay scale, because these guys want money, okay? Everyone wants money. They want to get paid. Until the guys that are pumping that heat, until they stop getting paid what they're getting paid, velocity is what gets paid. Going out there and doing these types of things is what gets paid. So when you're going to say, oh, we want you to dial, until somebody that is a pure pitcher in that sense, until that happens and that person gets paid over the guy who's throwing 100, like, until those things change, which is why, like you said, this is something like you talk about moving down the road, because until that change happens amongst owners who have basically thrown those types of guys nothing. Oh, what do you throw 92 and you locate? Well, 1 year, gross, 8 million. Like, but the guy, you throw 4 innings, but you throw 102, here's $50 million over a handful of years. Like, until that changes, none of this is going to matter, because no one's going to change how they act. And then you're just asking for more injuries when you're pushing, like, you have a bunch of guys on the IL. So it's like, until it has to be gradual. You have to work your way back to being that type of sport, essentially, because I think right now you're just asking. There's tons of injuries in the sport as it is now because you refuse to put tack on the ball or any type of substance on the ball to help these pitchers. Like, until you figure that out, I can't trust you or anything with this process when it comes to forcing someone that they have to go 6 innings, even with those caveats that you mentioned.
Well, my take is this. First of all, I think it's insane. I think it's foolish. A lot of people in the comments agreeing. Ant saying Rob Manfred can't leave any sooner. Good grief. Douglas saying, I think they want pitchers to pitch underhand and batters are only allowed to bunt. Mr. Nobody, stupid idea. We'll just put more pitchers on the IL.
What's going to happen?
Maureen, who brought it up, saying Manfred needs to go.
Well, when's he done? Is it 28? Is that when he's done?
I don't care. I don't know. I wish he was done today. Charlie saying, I like the idea of guys going 6, but a mandate is insane. Go 6 or spend time on the IL. They're going to penalize teams for overusing and abusing the IL too. Like, how do you my issue, and I agree with everybody here. My issue is this. I've said this a lot about MLB, and I stand by it. They constantly look for love in all the wrong places.
Yes.
This might sound like I'm contradicting myself, but I think when you hear the full point, you'll understand that I'm not. all of these changes that have been made to the fabric of baseball over the last several years with the idea of modernizing the game, pitch clock, the 3-batter rule, the no shift, the this potential thing of pitches to go longer, all this stuff. It's not actually modernizing the game. What it's doing is it's trying to make the modern game be like the game was 40 years ago and beyond. It's an attempt to get baseball back to the way that it was. Now, if you're an older baseball fan and you watch baseball in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and even before that, and even in some ways, if you watch baseball in part of the 90s where averages were up and things like that, take steroids out of it for a second, I understand why that might be something that you wish there was more of. I wish batting averages were higher. I wish guys didn't strike out as much. But this is the way the game is now. And if you don't like it, it just is what it is. The game has changed. The game has evolved. These are the ebbs and flows. Eventually, given enough time, it may course correct and go back to that. I don't think legislating rules to make a game be more modern or under the guise of more modern, which really just sets the game back 40 years. That's all they're trying to do. I wish, like when you and I grew up, guys hit 50 home runs at 40 years old. It's because they were all on steroids.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about Pete Alonso. Would Pete Alonso's 8-year contract make a lot more sense if you could guarantee that he would hit 50 home runs till he was 39, 40, 42? Yeah. Do I think baseball's better without steroids? I do. But we grew up watching baseball full of steroids.
Yeah.
So should we go back to that? Should we make steroids legal so that we can get back to the way the game was played 30 years ago? They keep legislating things in that take away managerial decisions, that take away strategy. They do it constantly because, I just wish guys could go the other way. Well, to your point, and I know there's pitchers and throwers or whatever, but there weren't guys throwing 102 miles an hour. It's not that easy to just come up there and hit the ball wherever you want. Right. It was easier when guys threw 88.
Yeah.
It's harder now. Guys you've never heard of.
The evolution of an athlete,
103 miles an hour. Yeah, maybe that guy throws 103 miles an hour for 6 weeks. He blows out his arm. He gets Tommy John surgery, and he never pitches again. But damn, for those 6 weeks, he sure is tough to hit the ball where it's pitched. You're just trying to survive. Yeah. So I just think that, and this is what I mean by looking for love in all the wrong places, instead of embracing that the game has changed, and maybe it's not as good, or maybe you just don't like it. I'm not sure. I think it's fine. I don't care that guys bat 210. It doesn't bother me. I don't care that guys strike out a lot. It's baseball. You're not going to get more fans of baseball by changing baseball. People either like baseball or they don't. Yeah. Baseball's either too long or it isn't. This game was long. I still watched every second of it, and it was fucking painful to watch because the Mets lost painfully. And it's the longest game in the pitch clock era, putting guys on base in the extra innings. Now, I'll admit, a lot of these things you kind of forget about. It just becomes the norm, and I think that's what they hope for. But I think fundamentally changing the game to make the game play like it did 30 and 40 years ago is not the solution. And to your point, it's not going to incentivize guys to do anything different. And to Charlie's point, you're just going to punish teams, and you're going to hurt players like a lot of people in the comments are saying. So I think it's a lose-lose proposition. Just embrace the way baseball is. If there's more openers, maybe openers become a position that you pay the way you pay closers. I don't know, but maybe that's the next genesis of this thing. They're trying to stop evolution of the game by legislating it like it was 40 years ago. What's next? Do we resegregate baseball now? Because we want to.
Let's take it easy. Yeah.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying that's just because baseball was better back then. Was it? It wasn't. I don't know that it was. So I think the whole thing is foolish. And I'm not taking shots at older fans.
No. It all in all.
I don't see why I don't see how this makes sense. I don't think, and I think, Maureen, I think you're right. Like it's anti-pitcher. It feels anti-pitcher. It feels anti-player. You already know they don't like that players make money.
Yeah, it's just you can't mandate this and expect it to be like, you can't do this and like on a quick basis. You can't be like, oh, this is what's going to happen and we're doing this in 2 years. Like, I don't even think 2 years would be enough time to self-correct all that has gone on with preparation of players that are not only in the game now, but what's going on within the sport throughout every single level. You know, I saw that Douglas was agreeing with what I was saying about velocity. It's like, these kids, like, they want to get paid, so they're going to throw as hard as they can. They're basically throwing now and maximizing their body with their legs and not caring what happens with their arms, mainly because they're saying, if I do this and if I can last just long enough to get to that first contract, I'm set for life. That's what's been established in the game. That's what people are going for now. And you know, maybe a pitcher will tell you that I'm talking out of my ass and I'm wrong.
Ibby, I don't know.
Listen,
I don't want to
on their minds.
I don't want to speak for this person. I don't know this person. You don't know this person, right? Everybody wants to have an unbelievable legacy and make the Hall of Fame.
Of course.
Steven Strasburg won a World Series and he has more money than anybody will ever have.
Correct.
You think he's upset about the way his career went? He won a championship.
He won a championship and he got paid.
And he's got so much money now.
Yeah.
Now, as a competitor, you want to, but he won a championship.
Yeah.
And he made and he was a huge contributor to winning that championship. You know, look at somebody like Matt Harvey. If the Mets win the World Series in 2015, man, that's a huge personal accomplishment. Now I know he doesn't get paid, but the reason why I bring up the pay and the championship is it's ultimate team success followed by ultimate personal success. You got paid. You hit the pinnacle, the lottery, and you were at the top of the sport because you won a championship. Isn't that what we play for? What more do you need? Yeah, Hall of Fame would be terrific. Sure, it would be wonderful. But to your point, like these guys, and I think a lot of them are probably okay with getting massive, and not everybody gets the Steven Strasburg contract, but you know, you sign one, like we talk about baseball numbers and like they're not real life numbers because they're not, but you sign one contract for the qualifying offer is $20 million.
That's all I need. That's all I need.
Give me $20 million right now, and I'm good. I'm fucking good. Anybody would be good. That's life-changing money.
Even on the short, like you mentioned Seth Lugo before, 3 years, $45 million to go play in Kansas City. Like, yeah, that's on the lower end.
Never play again.
Like, that's on the lower end. That's a guy who's been pitching with a partially torn UCL for like the last 6 years, and he got $45 million. Could end any day. You have no idea. Any day it could end. But he got that. But like these guys keep on. It's not going to, like, you can mention stuff like this, but you cannot mandate it. You can talk within the game about trying to lengthen out guys and change your practices of what you're rewarding from a pitching standpoint and not focusing so much on velocity. But again, it's this spot where you can't win because the evolution of the athlete from the years that they're trying to go back to, which is a mistake, to the years that we're heading towards, that evolution is going to where, yes, guys like Mason Miller are throwing fucking 104 miles an hour. But at the same time, you're like, yeah, but if we go back to pitching and guys throwing 95, 92, like you say that, it's like, yeah, Juan Soto's going to spit on that and then they hit it 450 feet. How does that help me win ball games? It's like
Aroldis Chapman is what, like 36 years old?
Still throwing 100.
He threw a pitch to strike out Manny Machado earlier this year at 105 miles an hour. So we're just going to go back to throwing 95?
You can't. It's like you can't go back.
Pitch. He threw it, dotted it on the inside part of the plate at 105. He throws that same pitch at 95. Manny Machado hits that 400 feet.
It's gone. Exactly.
It's not the same. And this is why, like you said, Carlos, this is a great comment from Carlos Ortiz. It's Darwin's theory in reverse. It is. You're halting evolution. And for I know we have a lot of listeners and viewers that are across the ages. It spans, some of them are our age, some of them are younger than us, some of them are older than us. So I want to be clear when I say I'm not insulting the older fan when I say this, that like your brand of baseball wasn't good or that you shouldn't have nostalgia for it. Of course you should. And it was great for the time. And that's why I brought up those two ridiculous answers or those two ridiculous suggestions of like, okay, so do you want to go back and resegregate baseball? No, that's absurd. No one would ever do that. And to a lesser extent, do you want to go back and let steroids be a part of the game? Because you know what? People really did. A lot of owners got their money's worth on big contracts when guys played till they were 40. Yeah. So maybe we should do that. Maybe if it's all about money, and it's all about keeping players healthy and keeping players in the league longer, well, maybe we should allow steroids again. Because then that 10-year contract to a guy who's 31 doesn't seem so ridiculous because maybe he's really good until he's 41. But we would never do that, right? We would never do that. So why are we doing it in these other ways? It doesn't make any sense. And you know what? I appreciate you, Charlie, for saying this. And this is the crux of my point. I'm not insulted. I get it. And you're right. The world changes. The game changes. Stop screwing with the natural evolution of it. And that's what I'm trying to say is that maybe the game is objectively worse now. I don't think it is, but maybe it is, right? Maybe before all these changes, the pitch clock and all those things, baseball was so unwatchable. And that's why viewership was down. Or maybe they just have a different problem. And maybe they need to understand that kids just aren't into something with all these unwritten rules. Maybe they should allow players to have fun. Because I look in the Caribbean and I see plenty of people having a blast with baseball. Yeah. I see it being more popular than it's ever been. I went to the UK and I watched a baseball game in a bar that was filled with people to watch that baseball game. Filled. Yeah. So I don't think baseball has a problem. I think they have problems, and I think I think that their problems are not what they think it is, and therefore their solutions are misguided. And that's what's foolish. And like you said, they can't even get the ball right.
Yeah. It's like focus on one thing before you jump to something else.
Mr. Nobody, let's bring back steroids and spider tack and have some real fun. Sure.
Best
Why
against
not?
the best. Let's see what happens.
Why not? Bring back all the advantages you can have. And obviously, again, like, being facetious when I say this, but it's just like, come on, man. Why are you stopping? Why are you halting the natural evolution of this thing? Whether it's better, whether it's worse, whether you like it better, I like it better, it doesn't matter. Anyway, we've gone on long enough. This show has been fantastic.
Wonderful,
the comments, the viewers, everybody, it's been terrific. Aunt Rivera, there's another mandate here. He read that all the rehab pitchers would have to go to Hefner's pitching lab if they bring in that mandate for 6 innings. No, Ibby, this has been a great show. Anything we didn't get to before we get out of here? My voice is going.
I got nothing else. Look, it's rough times. Based off of the stretch that this team has been on. Like I said, 4-6 over the last 10. Not ideal. Got the Marlins on deck. Got to handle business. I know it's hard to ask for a sweep.
Bring me a sweep. Bring me a sweep.
I know it's hard to ask for them. And I know you got to look. You got to win at least 2. You got to win at least 2 because then you're going off to face some really, really hot teams right now, really hot offensive teams that can do some damage against this pitching. So you got to handle business as always, LGM, and we'll see you next week, and we'll be here to talk you through all of it with whatever happens over that time.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm just going to bring this up from Douglas because this is a really good way to put, much like Charlie's was, this is a really good way to put a bow on the conversation we were just having, which is baseball has a problem, but only that MLB is trying to out baseball. There's a lot said in there. That is very, very good. Very, very good. As far as I don't have anything else extra to say. Shout out to everybody. Happy that folks like Maureen were able to make it because we moved the day. Yes, take care, everybody from Rosie. Yeah, you know what? LGM, get on a roll, get a streak going.
Let's go.
OMG, LFGM, LGM, great show. We couldn't do it without you guys. We appreciate it. We'll be back next week in our regular time slot, which I know is good news for some of you, bad news for others. We're sorry about that, but we'll be back Wednesday, 5:30 Eastern. I'm John. That's Ibby. This is Til Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, courtesy of the Brella Sports Network. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.